The soft jingling of bells on the door echoed as an elderly woman stepped into the jewelry store. Mrs. Thompson, with her silver hair and a graceful stride, had come to buy a special necklace for her daughter's birthday. She had saved up for months, and this was a moment she had been looking forward to. As she walked past the glass cases filled with sparkling rings, necklaces, and bracelets, she felt a sense of excitement, and a little bit of nervousness, too. She was on a fixed income, but she was determined to find the perfect gift. As she approached the counter, a well-dressed man in his late 40s greeted her with a smile. "Good afternoon, ma'am. How can I help you today?" His voice was smooth, too smooth, and his smile was a little too wide. Mrs. Thompson felt a bit uneasy but brushed it off, thinking it was just her nerves. "I'm looking for something special. Something for my daughter," she said, showing the man a picture of her daughter on her phone. The man's eyes sparkled with interest. "Of course we have a beautiful selection. I'm sure we can find something perfect for your daughter." He led her to a display case and pointed to a stunning necklace with a large diamond pendant. "This one is perfect. It's a one-of-a-kind piece, and I can offer it to you at a special price today." Mrs. Thompson was taken aback by the price. It seemed too good to be true, but the man's charm was convincing. Just as she was about to take out her wallet, a voice from behind stopped her. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Keanu Reeves stepped into the store, his calm presence filling the space. Mrs. Thompson turned around, surprised. Keanu smiled gently. "That necklace," he said, nodding toward the display, "is worth far more than he's telling you." Are you wondering how Keanu knows this? Keep watching, because the twist is just beginning. The salesman's smile faltered for just a moment, but he quickly recovered, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Excuse me, sir," he said, his voice now cold and defensive. "This is a private matter." Keanu's gaze didn't waver as he stepped forward. "I know exactly what you're doing. You're trying to scam this woman into buying an overpriced piece of jewelry." The salesman's jaw clenched, but he didn't respond. Mrs. Thompson, confused and shocked, looked between Keanu and the salesman. "What do you mean? This necklace seems perfect. And he said it was on sale." Keanu's expression softened. "It's not that it isn't beautiful, ma'am, but this is not a one-of-a-kind necklace. It's a mass-produced piece that's been marked up 10 times its value." The salesman scoffed, clearly growing agitated. "Who are you to come in here and make accusations?" Keanu turned to Mrs. Thompson. "I'm just trying to make sure you're not taken advantage of." Mrs. Thompson was starting to feel overwhelmed. She had always been trusting, and now she was unsure of what to believe. But Keanu's calm demeanor made her feel safe. "What should I do?" she asked quietly. Keanu's eyes met hers, reassuring her with his calm presence. "Let me take a closer look at this necklace. I'll show you exactly what's wrong." As Keanu examined the necklace under the store's bright lights, the salesman shifted uncomfortably. What's going to happen next? Keep watching, because things are about to take a surprising turn. Keanu examined the necklace carefully, his fingers brushing over the surface of the diamond. He then lifted it up to the light, inspecting it from every angle. Mrs. Thompson watched anxiously, her heart pounding in her chest. The salesman tried to stay composed, but his unease was growing. Keanu glanced over at the store's manager, who had been standing off to the side. "I'm sure you've noticed that this diamond has no certificate of authenticity," Keanu said, his voice steady. The manager's face turned pale. I... Keanu didn't let him finish. "This piece was brought in from a third-party supplier who sells unverified stones. They may look good, but they're nowhere near the value you're being told." Mrs. Thompson's eyes widened. "So it's not real?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Keanu shook his head. "The diamond is real, but it's not worth anywhere near what they're asking." The salesman's expression hardened, But Keanu wasn't done. "I'm going to call an independent appraiser right now. I think you'll be very surprised at how much they value this necklace." Keanu took out his phone and dialed the number. The salesman's face flushed with anger, but he remained silent. Mrs. Thompson felt a lump form in her throat as she began to understand what was happening. What will the appraiser say? Will this scammer get away with it? Keep watching to find out. Moments later, an appraiser arrived. A tall, professional man who quickly took a look at the necklace under the store's bright lights. "This is a nice piece," the appraiser said, his voice neutral. "But it's not nearly as valuable as what's being claimed. I'd say it's worth about a third of the price the salesman is asking." Mrs. Thompson's face fell. "I knew something didn't feel right," she said, her voice a mix of relief and anger. "I'm so sorry, ma'am," the appraiser continued. "But there are a lot of stores that do this. They mark up items like this to take advantage of customers who don't know better." Keanu turned to Mrs. Thompson, his voice soft but firm. "You deserve to be treated with honesty and respect. No one should ever take advantage of you." The salesman stood there, his face flushed with embarrassment and rage. But Keanu wasn't finished. "I think it's time for you to explain yourself to the authorities," Keanu said calmly. The store manager, who had been silently observing, nodded slowly. "I'll call security." The salesman realized that his charade was over. He turned and tried to flee, but the manager quickly stopped him. "You're not going anywhere," the manager said, reaching for the phone. "Will the scammer get caught? And how will this affect Mrs. Thompson's trust in others?" Keep watching, because this story isn't over yet. By the time the authorities arrived, the scammer had been detained by security, and the store manager was scrambling to explain how this had happened. The police took the salesman into custody for attempted fraud, and the store promised to fully reimburse Mrs. Thompson for any emotional distress she had endured. As the police took statements and the situation was resolved, Keanu turned to Mrs. Thompson. "You did the right thing by trusting your instincts," he said, his voice warm. Mrs. Thompson smiled, grateful for Keanu's help. "I don't know what I would have done without you," she said, wiping away a tear. Keanu simply nodded. "I'm just glad I could help." Before he left, Keanu handed her a business card. "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to call. And remember, there are good people out there. You just have to trust them." Mrs. Thompson looked at the card, feeling a renewed sense of hope. Keanu had not only saved her from a scam, but he had also reminded her that there are still good people in the world. As she left the store, she couldn't help but feel a little lighter, knowing that kindness and integrity would always have a place in her life. If you were inspired by Keanu's actions, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay updated on more heartwarming stories like this one.